I've been, it's interesting. I picked up some, we'll meditate in a few minutes, but I'm going to talk a little bit. I picked up some Dharma books over the last 24 hours and just haven't really been able to read those. And and I realized like I'm so, some part of me has really gotten absorbed in understanding, uh, racial justice issues and diversity issues that that's kind of where my mind wants to go these days. And um, last summer, uh, a couple days after George Floyd was murdered, and I knew there was a video, and I said to my daughter, I really don't want to see another one of these videos. And she said, you need to watch it because you need to not turn away from that suffering, which was a challenging statement. And so I did. And I took that direction from my daughter actually as something more meaningful, that I needed to understand these things, this history more than I have. Because, as a right-thinking liberal, I always thought, oh yeah, I get that. I understand. And, and so that allowed me to avoid fully letting myself be touched and understand the depth of horror that racism has done to this country and to all of us, but obviously to African Americans more than anyone. And so I was in the bookstore last week and bought a book by James Baldwin, and I never have read James Baldwin. I've seen that great documentary, I Am Not Your Negro, but I'd never read him. So I've been reading The Fire Next Time, and it's just so incredible. But I came upon a line in it that was relevant to our 12-step work to try to get us back to recovery. And because we've been on step 7, and kind of, and I was looking at some of the things that Buddhadasa Bhikkhu said about God and Christianity. Um, and so here's one line from James Baldwin. If the concept of God has any validity or any use, it can only be to make us larger, freer, and more loving. If God cannot do this, then it is time we got rid of him.
Mm.
And that was right. In this book, it's right as he's meeting Elijah Muhammad. So that's a pretty powerful line. It can only be to make us larger, freer, and more loving. That's a beautiful way to think of higher power. So that'll be my digression for the morning. I'll get it back to our standard topic here. So people are saying nice things in the chat. Maybe I should look at that. And maybe, Angela, maybe you can find that 10% happier link to, so people can see that. First time here from Buffalo. Wow. I think it's winter there, right? I've heard about that. Someone bought my daily reflections. I was actually reading my daily reflections, which I never do because I wrote them and it's like, get away from me. But today was about aging. So that was joyful. But tomorrow, I read tomorrow because it was on the same page, and it was about good enough, which is a topic I really like. Email from New York Insight. Wow. Oh, Yeah, Pamela Ayatunde. Yeah, I think I know who she is. Recently shared a request to support a brand new initiative called Buddhist Justice Reporter. Reporter, okay. Created in Minnesota, BIPOC Buddhist community called Order of Freedom to bring fact-based witness and Buddhist analysis to the George Floyd trial. Wow. Someone from outside Philadelphia. I am from outside Philadelphia. If you call Bethlehem, Pennsylvania outside, it's 50 miles from Philadelphia. Jim from Denver, hi. Another place where apparently they have winter. First time here from Portland. See, 10% happier is already making me famous. It's great. Yes. Yeah, Between the World and Me is fantastic. So anyway, I guess we should get on. Sit here reading chat all day. We could just all chat with each other and never actually say anything. Well, anyway, welcome new people, old people, young people, all beings, near and far. For those who did not hear me in my introduction, I am on a retreat, on my own retreat. And so I'm a little spaced out, but maybe I'm always a little spaced out. Maybe I just know it now, right? Anyway, I'm in that this is my second day of my retreat, which is kind of a time when you're just sort of like between your normal mind and your retreat mind, and your mind doesn't know where to go. So anyway, what I can do is meditate. So I'll meditate and I'll try to give you some guidance in meditating, and then we'll progress from there. I actually need a therapist right now, so you guys might have to serve the purpose. But yeah, we'll see. Oh, sweet. All right, let's sit back, find yourself a way of sitting that you can be stable and comfortable, relaxed, but not too relaxed. Don't want to fall asleep. So you can close your eyes or just lower your gaze, stepping out of the visual sense realm. And that, of course, brings forward other senses, particularly the feeling of the body and sounds. So let the attention come into the body, just feeling stillness, feeling the energy in the body. So we balance in meditation our effort to incline the mind towards presence and calm. And we balance that effort with acceptance of what is. We can say let go or settle or any language like this, but it might not happen. So what do we do with that? We need to work with acceptance, to being with the experience. So certain things can be fairly fairly easily done, like relaxing your jaw, releasing your shoulders, softening the belly. And these intentional forms of physical relaxation can have an effect of releasing mental tension, emotional tension. But they aren't sort of automatic in that regard. You might find that there's feelings or different kinds of stress that really don't respond to this kind of intentional letting go. And that puts us to a situation of bringing mindfulness with this kind acceptance. And in the language of Buddhism, it is bringing us face to face with suffering or dukkha. What is our relationship to that? As addicts, our habit might be to run or suppress, try to control or fix. The practice of mindfulness challenges us to simply be without resistance, without struggle. This surrender to that over which we do not have control. So this creates this conundrum. Do I not have control because I'm not making enough effort? Is there some failing in me to take control? Or is this really something that I can't do anything about? The key, it turns out, is how much ego is involved in this struggle. Making an effort, a sustained effort, a vigorous effort, does not necessarily create conflict. We can strive in our meditation as long as that striving isn't driven by self, by a grasping or a need. And this is the difference between right intention and wrong intention. In order to distinguish, we must develop a mindfulness that tunes in, it starts to become aware of this line between skillful effort and striving. Of course, there is no actual line. And so this mindfulness, it even itself is imperfect. We discover that there are layers of letting go. And there are layers of effort, of skillful effort. So the simple starting point is connecting with something real, like the breath. Mindfulness depends upon being present. The breath is always present. Soon we discover the habit of mind to be busy, to look for distraction, and we lose touch with the breath. When we notice that, come back to the breath. Everything else is extra. Just notice the quality of effort you're making. Can you try to stay with the breath without striving? Can you distinguish the difference between that? Just a fluid effort, the effort of flow versus the effort of wanting to do it right or trying to be good at it, trying to figure out how to do it. Well, I hope I didn't lead people too far down the rabbit hole there. Um, That's what happens when you get me in the middle of a retreat. Yeah, and I kind of, I guess, um, I want to talk a little bit about meditation before I get into step 7. I mean, step 7, and step 7 says, we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings, him being God. So problematic, but, we, as Buddhadasa says, we beseech the law of karma through our action and not merely with words. So we try to change by changing our karma, by changing our thoughts, our speech, and our actions. And that's how the change happens. That's how the letting go happens. Just as in meditation, the letting go happens by showing up over and over. It takes persistence. Um, But I just wanted to, I had a moment. I was doing some yoga right before this, and in this like warrior pose, and I look over, and there's a box of stuff that, since I had my office painted recently, stuff that I didn't put back up on the walls, and there's just the edge of a poster sticking out, and I see the poster, and it's of a Brian Wilson concert I went to about 20 years ago with a friend, and the mind just goes, right? I mean, it's just so interesting how it grasped onto that, and what it grasped onto was that friend and what happened with the relationship with him and the story. And it just was like, all it took was seeing the edge of this poster and the mind is gone, you know? I mean, no wonder it's hard to meditate. You know what I mean? It's like, if that's all it takes to be lost, you know, and so it's so interesting when if you ever, I don't recommend doing this a lot, but once in a while, when you find yourself like lost in a long thought, to just go, where did this start in my mind? And you'll find that, it usually will have started with just some little image or memory or sensation, or something triggers it. Our minds are so conditioned to get lost in thinking. And it's interesting here, starting a retreat, and it's painful to start a retreat. And many of you have been on retreats and know what I'm talking about. There's this kind of wrenching feeling of being torn away from the that comfort, the at least illusory comfort of just being able to think and get lost. And when when this thought runs out, or this moment of entertainment runs out, that you just find something else, whether it's a book or music, or get in the car and go somewhere, or do some shopping, go get I mean, you know I haven't looked at my email. It's agonizing, right? Like, oh my God, like, oh, 10% happier just came out. What if I'm getting like emails from blah, 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 and it's just so interesting how the mind is just desperate. It's really kind of pitiful, this human mind, really. How did we get stuck here? Ay, ay, ay. And of course, it thinks it's doing us a favor. That's the thing. Our mind is like, I'm trying to help you out here. I'm trying to keep you alive. This is you asked me to do this. No, it wasn't me, but it was my ancestors like 4 million years ago who said, thinking seems to work really well. I think I should do more of that. Uh, so so step 7, yeah, it's strange for me how far away from the original language of the steps I am, that I just have this whole in my mind, step 7 is all about letting go. It doesn't say anything about that in the step 7. It says we asked God to remove our shortcomings. Well, wait a second. Like, how is that about letting go? Well, my opinion, for what it's worth, is okay. It's talking about these shortcomings. Okay, right away we're in a little bit of trouble because it's like, what's that mean? But so I'm replacing that with stuff that makes me suffer. You know, letting it, and I'm replacing remove with let go. So let go of stuff that makes me suffer. And I'm not asking anybody to do that. I'm trying to engage in a process. And that, it turns out, is the first heading after the opening part of the chapter in One Breath at a Time. It says, it's a process. So there you go. Step 7 helps us to see our habitual reactions and try to let go, or at least not indulge them. Bringing awareness to these behaviors is the first step in change. Right. So once again, if we're going to let go of something, we have to know what it is. And the thing that's remarkable that we discover in meditation is how often just in realizing that we are thinking, the thought dissolves. You know? Not always, but uh, a lot of times, you don't have to wrench yourself away from the thought. You just kind of go, oh, I'm thinking, come back to breath. Now, it might start up again 12 seconds later, but we see that awareness is like the key piece of this. Without that, there can be no change. It's why mindfulness is like the crown of the Eightfold Path. It's the underpinning of the Eightfold Path. When we talk about any of the aspects of the Eightfold Path, any of the other aspects of it, the other 7, we see that they depend upon mindfulness. They can't really be activated without mindfulness. So I'm not going to get into the personal details of what I've written in this section of the book because it gets into relationships, and I don't want to talk about that. but I will, in general terms, talk about how I realized early in recovery, a year into my recovery. I call that early in recovery. Someone who's a month in would probably think that was a long time, but at that point, kind of realized that my, we could say my secondary addiction besides drugs and alcohol was sort of my problems around relationship and establishing and having a healthy romantic relationship. And and I took on this whole other approach to that, which my sponsor recommended. And like going on a retreat, it was this kind of, there was something wrenching about it, and it forced me to see, by taking different behaviors, that really revealed to me what my behaviors had been mentally as well as my outward behavior. And that then, by seeing that, I was able to see how I'd created suffering for myself. And and then by having this other um, process, this other approach that my sponsor was recommending, I created new karma. This is again what just I sort of can't repeat Buddhadasa's line enough. Beseech the law of karma through our actions, not merely with words. So by taking that different action, I started to uh, relate and engage in dating in a completely different way, and that then brought about completely different results. And so simple, right? but you know, in terms of uh, our addiction, and we can say it's the same thing, but and in this broader question of shortcomings, but the reason this is section is called "It's a Process" is that it's not just a matter of making a decision or uh, or reading one book or going on one meditation retreat. The changes that happen for us happen over time and demand time. And this is another one of the reasons why it's so hard for addicts to grow and to deal with their broader problems besides their addiction, is that it takes time, and addicts are by definition impatient. I mean, that's what addiction is, a demand for immediate fix, for immediate change. And so when we're asked to engage in something that has an open-ended time frame in order to attain something that we want, there can be this real, just whatever, disinterest, I guess. Like, why would I do that? And and so it really is. This is another aspect of the surrender uh, of coming into recovery, is seeing I just can't um, I can't keep functioning or dysfunctioning the way I have throughout my life, because it doesn't work. And I'm going to have to start to engage in a process that takes time, that I don't get to control, and that I don't know when it ends, and I don't know what I'm going to get out of it. It's really awful, isn't it? But it turns out, like, it's sort of maturity, I think, is what it is. And I do think that addiction in certain ways is an expression of immaturity. Maybe that's not fair to every addict, but for me, it certainly was. And immaturity in the sense of just an unwillingness uh, to take on life's terms, as they say, and just deal with it. This sort of childish expectation that things should be the way I want them to be, and I should be able to get things on demand. Just give me the you know the the mother's milk. Kind of cry, and then be given that source of comfort. Um, and so then, as I'm suggesting, we engage in this process, but it doesn't mean we're going to get what we want from it. Uh, you know, and that's the other aspect of this. I was kind of talking in the guided meditation about, well, you can make an effort and sometimes something will happen, but sometimes something won't. It won't happen, and what then? And how do you deal with that? So that step 7 isn't just about, oh, I got my shortcomings removed, great, now I can just cruise on. It can also be like, oh, there are aspects of my experience, and I don't know if I want to even say aspects of myself, but maybe that too, that seem to be intractable. They're not really, uh, they don't seem to be willing to change. They don't seem to be removable, or at least in this moment they're not. And then that question becomes, do I keep pushing? Do I keep efforting? You know, to okay, maybe I just need to focus more. Maybe I need to just work harder. Maybe I need to work the steps harder. Maybe I need more therapy. All the things we do. Or do I need to accept this? And there's no easy answer to that, right? So this is like a classic kind of Buddhist problem as well, that there's no answer, and that we don't know what's right and what's wrong. So I don't know. I'm full of hope today. I can show. It is, um, remarkable to sit a retreat and to, um, as you begin a retreat over the first couple days, especially, there can be this sense of running into these walls or blockages, or the energy just gets, you get so fatigued, or the mind, it seems like your mind is busier than ever. It's like, what, I've been meditating for a day, why am I thinking more than I was before I started this retreat? And and it's easy to see how you could sort of think, well, this doesn't really work, this, I don't think I can do this. And then if you stick with it, there's a point at which there's a shift. And this is one of the mysteries, and I was talking about this with Dan Harris, and he was not willing to buy into my theory. So, but he's a youngster meditation wise. Um, try doing it for 40 years and see what your opinion is. But not to pull rank, but you somehow, there's this quietness that comes. You know? I mean, the first time it came, it took me over 10 days. I was on a 3-week retreat, and it was halfway through that 3-week retreat that it hit, or it landed, or I landed. Now, I think because I'm more trained, although I also think I was still an addict at that time, and I'm a pretty bad meditator. Um, you know, well, I guess we all are, but anyway, it took me a long time. I know a lot of people who arrive there more quickly, but I now I can arrive there in a few days, where this quietness comes, and you kind of say, well, where did that come from? What what part of this was about me bringing my attention back to my breath, you know, the form, that is, of the meditation, and the effort that I was making? And what part of it was just the setting, the quiet, the stillness, just sitting hour after hour after hour? Was it that I was doing it right, or that I was just doing it? You know? And I land on the side of I was just doing it, just showing up in this form, in this general form, not in the efforting part of the form. I mean, obviously there's an effort involved in sitting down and being still and being quiet. But beyond that, a lot of the internal effort, I'm not so convinced. And I see that there is a great longing, and I've certainly had it, uh, for the method. What's the best method? And people will, stick to this is what works, this is the method. And meditation teachers who have success with a particular method will push that method because it's the best method, you know, based on research by one person, right? It's like, yeah, I mean, that's maybe, you know, but so what I see is that what's shared, and if we're going to look at the shared uh, elements that everybody who goes on a retreat has, it's the stillness, the quiet. Um, what's the other one? Stillness, silence, and something else. Uh, I owe it. But uh, s- if someone says, "I went on a retreat," if someone says to me, "I went on a retreat," my first question isn't going to be, "What was the meditation practice you were doing on that? Were you counting your breaths? Or were you doing a mantra? Or were you doing body?" No, my question is, how long? Oh yeah, that's the other element. Stillness, silence, time. It's how long, right? It's very similar to recovery, right? if someone says they're in recovery, your question won't be, well, have you really worked the steps? What's your higher power? I want a full report on your inventory. And have you finished those? No, it's how long, right? And time is this, you know, has this power. My wife is printing, so if you can hear the printer running, shared space. Uh, so there is this kind of connection, right, between meditation and recovery, which is time. And I would just point back at my first point about time, which is that addicts don't want to spend any time. Addicts want things now. We don't want it to take time. So, and I'm guessing that we're not unique. We're just human beings, and so everybody wants to sign up for the most efficient method, and our culture is more and more obsessed with speed. I mean, smartphones have just brought this, made it more graphic, more clear. Our impatience. Yeah. Which creates a challenge when you're on a retreat, especially when you're on a retreat at home and your smartphone is not that far away. Yeah. Well, this might have had something to do with step 7, but I'm going to open it up for people to comment or ask questions. You can just unmute yourself if you want to speak, or I mean, you can do the raise hand function if you want, but we're usually pretty informal around here.
Hi, Kevin. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's
Roberta?
Roberta from a long time ago.
Yes. Hi, I thought that was you. Nice to see you.
Really good to hear you and see you.
Oh,
What a joy.
yeah.
I just had this whim this morning to find your meditation group because I knew that you combine recovery and practice, and I've been part of the Stone Creek Meditation Center for a few years since I moved to Sebastopol.
Uh-huh.
However, Sarah and Charlie are going to be moving on from that group and moving away at some point a year from now. And I'm sort of searching for this kind of group that includes recovery.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably the only one that's really doing this that I know of, and I'm just love that I found you.
Yeah,
Just want to
nice.
say that I have about 15 months recovery,
Uh-huh.
and and I have had years of recovery, and then I would break it. Feels different this time, really more settled, more mature, I think, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that is a good description. I think there is wisdom as we do age, even though it clearly we resist it.
Mm.
Yeah, but I'm happy to report that my meditation through Zen and just in general life has taught me being calm is the most important part of myself.
Mm.
And I just want to appreciate you're doing this. I'm going to get your book right away.
Oh, great.
And I signed up for a March group you're doing March 12th, I guess. You're
Spirit
great.
Rock. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Spirit Rock
Spirit
group.
Rock.
Yeah.
So bless you. Thank you so much for still doing this. I just
Yeah.
love seeing you.
Yeah, nice to see you, Roberta. Going going back to the West Niskers group over at on College Avenue.
Yeah,
That's quite a while ago. Well, there there is kind of a Buddhist recovery, uh, you know, culture now, and Buddhist. Maybe Angela, you could put a couple resources in the chat. The
great.
Buddhist Recovery Network lists a lot of meetings. There's something called Recovery Dharma, which is like peer-led. And there are teachers like Vimala Sara, who I was just teaching with this past weekend. And oh, there's somebody doing a whole course now. Dave Smith is doing and he comes out of Noah Levine's scene, but has separated himself from it carefully.
Yeah,
Joni, yeah, Joni's on here actually right now, and Joni's got a group. Joni, why don't you put in your weekly class in there? Did you put it in? Yeah, I see you did. Sundays, Mindful Recovery, and Joni's a meditation teacher in recovery as well. So thanks for
great.
that. So yeah, I mean it's an active growing thing, which is good because I'm gonna have to retire pretty soon. So,
Oh,
no, that's a joke. I'm just thinking I'm gonna fall over in my cushion on my cushion one day. All right, he's done. Sarah, substitute, step in, bring somebody in off the bench. Thanks, Roberta. Any other
thank you.
Kevin.
comments, questions?
Hi, Kevin. It's Bill.
Hey, Bill. Hi.
Yeah. How you doing? Everything good?
Yeah, not bad.
Um, yeah. I mean, I've been doing recovery Dharma now for almost 3 years, and of course, it started out as refuge recovery, and then the Noah Levine thing came up, and most of the groups have splintered off of them. But there's quite a few in the Bay Area. I mean, I don't know. I think it's all over the country now, but it's really pretty inspiring. And in our group, like we had a meeting last night, we had about a dozen people. And I would say at least half of them were also doing, 12-step work alongside of it. And so it's just another avenue to go down, which I think
Yeah.
is really important. You can find, water finds its own level and you'll figure out something for yourself that works. I'm finding this particular type of meeting very, very influential in my life. I think it's just been an incredible change of my psyche, the way I've been doing things. And I started meditating before all this stuff, but it's just been a big change. And people involved in it seem to be all on the same page, feeling the same way about it. Now, some have left 12-step groups to go this way because I think they just got a little bit, maybe not tired of it, but I think it just got overwhelming for them. But I mean, anything that works is the way to go. That's for sure. Also, one other comment too about, you were talking about, I applaud you for doing a self-meditation. I've done a few myself, and it's hard to do at home. But getting into the meditation, I was just thinking to myself, I've been on a few retreats, and the idea of being in a group, or even if it's just a Monday night at Spirit Rock or seeing you Friday night out there, there's something about being in a group where there's a whole room full of people doing it at the same time, where your mind just seems to settle quicker. And I don't know what it is, but it's always done. I mean, I meditate every day at home, but it's still the idea of being in a room full of people that are like-minded and doing the same thing. It seems like you're able to like settle in or drop in, or whatever term you want to use, much easier. Half the time I don't even realize how long I've been going. Where at home sometimes, the thoughts come in quicker and you're just going, oh shit, when is this timer going to go off? And all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's just kind of a unique kind of a feeling. And I miss going to retreats. So once this whole thing clears up, I'll be seeing you. So
Yeah, good.
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
You know, I know what you're talking about, and it's also interesting that when you're on your own, because I've done a lot of retreats alone uh, over the years, just for various reasons, and particularly over the last 20 years, when I couldn't necessarily fit it into the retreat schedule, or I had a break and there wasn't a retreat I could get into, or I just wanted to work alone. And being in a group can also be distracting, you know. And you find when you work on your own, that at a certain point it can be really, really nice to just, I mean, I know it's not something you're going to do for your first retreat or whatever, but at a certain point, it's a good thing to do once you've been on a bunch of retreats, to like try just going off on your own. Better to do it somewhere where you have support, like Vajrapani, where they have cabins and they bring you your food and everything. So you're not, I mean, what I'm doing right now is really interesting, and I'm curious to see how it works out. But but generally, there's something nice about, and it's also, there's a way in which it gives you more confidence about your own practice, that like you don't need someone ringing a bell or telling you how long to sit. And you're just like, oh, let me just sit for as long as I feel like sitting. What would happen if I did that? And then after that, I just do some walking meditation, and then I'll go sit again. And you just kind of like flow with the day as you want. And there's something I love about it. It's very um, easeful in a certain way. So, but both are valuable. Not to give up on the self one. Um, the but you bring up another point about retreats, and I said to my wife last night, Spirit Rock should have a vaccinated retreat. They should have a retreat for people, as soon as there's, the 65 and up have been vaccinated, they should just have a retreat where, say, if you can show you've been vaccinated, you can come and retreat, and they could get going in a very shortly, right? I don't know if that would be like, I don't know. I'm sure there's a million problems that I haven't thought of in that, but it's just an interesting idea. Maybe I'll do it. I'll have a vaccinated retreat. Everybody come over to my house who's vaccinated. Anyway, it is a time when there's this. It's kind of hard to like look at younger people and say, "Wow, I want them to get vaccinated." Like, I'm, yeah, you know, um, I'm grateful that I got one shot, but doesn't mean much. I was talking about this a while back about like, yeah, it's nice, but there's all those other people that need care. It doesn't feel very fulfilling to, oh yeah, great, I got mine. Everybody else take a hike. Yeah. Well, my friends, it is time for my walking meditation. So I'm going to have to let you all go. And I'll be back Friday night. I think my retreat's going to end uh, right around that Friday night, because I have to do whatever. We'll see. Unless I like, just maybe I'll just decide to stay on retreat for the rest of my life. I don't know. As long as I'm making dinner and doing the dishes, I'm sure my wife will be happy with it. So hope everybody is well and stays well. Um, See you on Friday.